Welcome to Overcoming Overthinking. Everyone here identify as an overthinker?
Yes.
Yes? If not, you're in the wrong workshop. But actually, you're not in the wrong workshop because everyone's an overthinker. It's not a question of do you overthink or not. It's a question of how much. How soon can you catch yourself? The flow of things. The allowing the co-creative process to take place. We're going to talk about that today. And the only difference between those of us here and those who aren't here is that we're aware that we're overthinking, which is half the battle. It's half the work. It's just to be aware of it. Then we're in receiving mode, then we can see the lessons, then we can see the impact of our actions and our words. We can feel the weight, the charge of our environment, of our own psyche. And then it's just a question of finding the right tools to do something about it, taking workshops, classes, reading books. It's when we're not aware of the things that subconsciously drive our behavior, lack fear, control. That's when life gets a bit messy. But all of us here, we're aware. Most people eventually, sooner or later, get to the point where they realize, why do I keep overthinking? Why do I keep overreacting to life? And they want to do something about it, and they just can't. Because it really is a physiological matter, a question of our nervous system is wired a certain way. We react to thoughts that come along. We react to situations that present themselves to us, and then we get pulled into the rabbit hole, and deeper we go. So we're going to talk about all of that today. A little bit about myself. I see a few familiar faces. Welcome back. And for those who are new faces, welcome. Nice to see you. My name is Sirach. My focus is practical spirituality for everyday life, really for an extraordinary life. It's not just about healing. So many places we go, it's all about healing, trying to be a better person, trying to discover who we truly are. But very few people talk about what's on the other side of that healing. What is the life that awaits us once we can work through the blockages and the issues. And that really is an incredible life that awaits us. I'm going to talk more about that as well. Maybe some of you, I've seen you down at the store. Two of my books are there. I speak and I do private sessions on this if anyone's interested. I'm certified in meditation, Reiki, Qigong. Anyone know Eckhart Tolle? Yes, I facilitate retreats for him. I've been featured on countless podcasts. It's really the previous 25 years as a designer and an architect in IT and in the startup scene and Fortune 500 companies in the LA agency world that taught me about overthinking. I was a massive overthinker. I remember some of the first indicators of awareness that were seeping into my consciousness is when I would have these gatherings of friends or family, and we'd have these great debates, and we'd all be talking about intellectual matters or philosophy, really cordial, beautiful, differing opinions, didn't matter. It's just a great exchange of ideas. But afterwards, I would feel depleted. I would look at everyone. It's like, why do I feel? Does everyone else feel depleted? Everyone felt depleted, even though we had what was a great exchange of ideas, supposedly. We all got pulled into our heads and opinions and perspectives. And that's when our life force starts to shrivel. That's when we start to hit blockages. And it's when we shut down in terms of flow and the source of inspiration. What we know is already stale. It's already dead. To create and only live from what we already know. And we're all raised in societies that emphasize knowing, knowledge. All our degrees. And so we're all conditioned to live in our heads. And living from the head, living from what we already know is a stale matter. There's nothing fresh there. There's nothing new. You can't be creative from there. You can't feel inspired from there. In fact, the more you talk, You might have experienced this the more you get into a place where, like, what are we even talking about? What are we even saying? What did I say? Is this even anything? It's like suddenly you just hear the words and even the meaning dissipates when we talk too much. And so this is what we do in our heads all day long. Western psychology calls it rumination. There's an amazing amount of research on this. We spend 50% to 2/3 of our day lost in thought. Spectacular number. That's time spent not actually being here, not actually living, not actually responding to what's happening in front of us, engaging with the aliveness that is all around us all the time. That is, everything that is infused with this aliveness, including ourselves, and we cut ourselves off from it when we become absent-minded. Not only do we get absent-minded, that's also when we make mistakes and accidents happen. We make bad decisions, because we're essentially in a state of reactivity when we're in our head. Now we're reacting to our own thoughts. It's this relationship that is the overthinking relationship. And if we give our thoughts too much power, then they rule us, they own us. To not have the awareness, that gap between who you really are, which is your awareness of your thoughts, your awareness of your feelings. You're not your name, you're not your job, you're not your title, you're not your body, you're not the stuff that you own, your achievements, none of that. We're the awareness of those things. So when we're in our head, we rob ourselves of this awareness, this presence, the seeing things from a bigger, broader perspective, not attaching ourselves to everything that comes along. Instead, that's how our life winds up like a roller coaster. It's because we just believe every thought that comes along. And then every thought we give our attention to, we become. Everything we give our attention to, we become. Not just in our environment, but primarily in our thoughts. Great journaling prompt at the end of the day is to assess, what did you give your attention to today? Just do a tally. It's kind of, all right, 40% of what I gave my attention to was negative, was pulled me down, was ruminating in the past or projecting about the future or whatever. And the other 60% was I was present, I was in my body, I was doing yoga, I was walking my dog, I was having a great conversation with my partner or family members or whatever it may be. Let's just kind of look at that, because that becomes the sum total of your energy field. Every single thought, every single situation carries a charge. Everything's energy. And that which you give your attention to, you become. You absorb that into your energy field. And now you walk around with this energy field. And you bring it wherever you go. People come to me for private sessions and they want to quit their job or leave the relationship or move to another city or another country. And I always say, wait. Let's first learn to do what you're already doing with more attention, with more intention, with more awareness. It's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And that is the beginning of the spark to recognize that you can find that aliveness, that beauty, that flow, that love for creation, the passion of creation that's in all of us, that's in this crazy world that we're in. You can discover and connect and co-create with that in anything. There's no difference between a boring client meeting and standing at the summit of a mountain you just climbed. The beauty and splendor of presence of your awareness is far greater than just the mere physical environment, the circumstance. When you can start to not then chase outcomes because you're always seeking that ecstasy, that high, that trying to be a better person and trying to find a way to live a better life, and actually learn to connect with what's there right now, here, who I am, my station. You don't get there by wanting to be there. You get there by wanting to be here. It's a paradox to the mind. You like that one? It's a paradox to the mind, but only to the mind. But that's how energy works. There's a common saying in the US at least, what you resist persists. Full of gold, that statement. It's full of deeper recognition, awareness of how life actually works. Energetically, when we push against something, it pushes back. Or it even runs away. But the way we proceed is always through acceptance. And we'll talk more about that as well. All right. Other stuff I've done down there. All right. Little overview of today's session. We got a good chunk of time together. Always excited. We're going to cover a lot of ground. It's going to be packed, but ultimately it's so simple. Everything is so easy. Life is not meant to be complicated. It's not meant to bog us down and be heavy, and we're trying to like make a plan and figure out our life ahead of living it. There's a clue in that. So we're going to look at recognizing the habit of overthinking. That's really what it is. It's a habit. Our nervous system gets wired a certain way over time. Everyone's subject to this. We're just conditioned this way. It's not society. It's your ancestry, your family of origin, your lineage that just imprints us with stuff. Carl Jung said, most of our issues are the unlived life of our parents. If we reflect on our own upbringing, we can see we never really listened. If anything, we went counter to what they said, but we absorbed in our particular way how they behaved, how they carried themselves, how they handled situations, how they communicated with each other. So those are the things we just directly absorb without even thinking about it. I have a friend who's a psychologist, and he's treating a mother who was a pro athlete, and she walks with a limp, and her 4-year-old daughter walks with a limp. We just absorb things, we mimic things. And so here we are now with a busy mind. We live in a world that is constantly looking to elicit a reaction from us. Right or wrong, good or bad, true or false, believe us, don't believe them. This is for you, this is against you. Constant reactivity, constant being pulled into our head. And that's when, with more awareness, we also start making lifestyle changes. There's the part of actually becoming more aware of our relationship with our thoughts, but then also that spills into our environment. That's the people that we surround ourselves with. It's one of the greatest impacts on how our trajectory of our life goes is the people we surround ourselves with. It's just natural. We're still living. There's still an evolution. It's never about jumping to some end point. It doesn't work that way. Life is constantly in motion. This is one of the hang-ups of the mind. It likes to make statements of permanence. Something is something. I am this, you are that. My teacher is bad, teacher is good. These are statements of permanence, and life is not permanent. So when we're constantly in our head and we're making these statements of permanent, things are something, right? That describes a permanent state. It's completely counter to the nature of life. Theoretically, something is something for a split moment, but then the next moment you'd have to revisit and look at it with fresh eyes and then put a label on it again if you want, and then again, and then again, and the mind just can't do that. So if we're tasking our mind with navigating life, it would quickly get overwhelmed, so it just makes these blanket statements. And if there's any underlying message to all of this is that you don't solve overthinking by thinking even more. We're trying to solve the problem from the place that is the problem, but rather to come out of it altogether. So it's not really overcoming overthinking. Kind of implies a battle, but it sounds better for marketing. But it's coming out of overthinking. All right. And it's everywhere. We're going to look at all of that stuff. Then, of course, we're going to look at how to overcome it, how to come out of it. Lots of hands-on group and individual exercises today. Make sure to use this opportunity as a bond between like-minded, right? So I spoke before, the difference between those of you here and those who decided to go somewhere else, that's totally their prerogative. But there's an awareness here that this is something I want to address in myself. Because there's a strong enough sense that it's holding me back, it's confusing me, it's causing disorientation, it's keeping me in a state of reactivity, of non-clarity. I keep chasing outcomes. I think life is permanent. It's an endless dilemma when we're just primarily living through the mind. And just to set the record straight, the mind is fantastic. It's an incredible tool. It's great at information gathering. It's great at data analysis. And it's great at executing once you have a plan, once you've made a decision. But it absolutely sucks at making a decision that's right for you. It doesn't know you. It's not like some higher intelligence that lives outside of it. It's a tool that you use, but it doesn't know you. And it actually tries to do as good a job as it can. When we give it the responsibility to make a decision for us, it tries. It really, really tries. It compares, and that's what it's good at. It tries to validate, that's what it's good at. It looks at data points and analyzes, and that's what it's good at, but this is not who we are. Doesn't know what's right for you, your blueprint, your being, your purpose. The simplest example is go to the supermarket and try to pick out a cereal. It is so fallible and fickle when it comes to choosing what's right for you. You can't even decide between a couple of options because there's no resonance there. All it knows is data. There is an element to the mind that is still in survival mode. It's looking for problems to solve. It's looking to keep us safe. Up until not too long ago, that was necessary. Fortunately, it isn't any longer. The danger isn't lurking around every corner. But it's still in that brain 1.0 mode, some people call it. And so again, when we task our mind with navigating life, figuring out what's our path, then it's going to look for a lot of problems. And when there's no big problems, it's going to look for little problems and amplify those. It's just doing what it's designed to do. It just doesn't help us in our current environment, in our current state of evolution. All right, and in terms of Q&A, I encourage everyone to, as we go along, to just raise your hand. I'll make a note if I'm talking and then come back to you. I always find it's better not to wait till the end, just like as things come up, because that's the flow of life. That's how life works. When an idea comes, don't put it off till some other day. It's like give it some attention, nurture it. You're the precise antenna at that moment to receive that download. And so give it your attention. You can decide this is not the right time. You can choose, again, from a place of awareness, like, okay, I've got, my plate is full or whatever, but you're doing it now. You're not reacting, you're choosing. That's really what choice and free will is about. The ability to choose which thoughts to give your attention to, which ideas to execute on. There's some fascinating people who specialize in baby souls. And when they come and have a conversation with that, are you the right parent at this time? Some cool stuff. Yes?
I just wondered if you could speak on the concept of thinking and thought versus the Tibetan concept of mind. Mind, because that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Well, Tibetans, they don't have a concept of soul, so they think of...
Can you repeat?
Sorry about that. Yes. The difference between thinking, maybe not the difference, but just juxtapose thinking with the Tibetan concept of mind. I just spent a couple of weeks with monks, and one of the female practitioners out of the 300 or 400 came up during one of the Dhamma talks and asked, I thought it was all egalitarian. Why are the women in the back? And And so the monk said two things. Well, one, it's for your safety, but the second thing is, it's because you think you're a woman. You're identified with this body and then the barrage of impulses and imprints that we get from your environment, but that's the root of a lot of our suffering. It's just this deep identification with who we are, including our body and our gender. To him, he said, you're a mind. You're just a mind, just. Somebody else at the recent Eckhart retreat in Greece also asked a similar question of how to deal with a transgender daughter and as a mother, and his answer was similar. It was, you have to transcend your identification with your body, with yourself, with your gender. Higher realms of consciousness are genderless. So if you take this as a general direction, as we evolve our own awareness, our own consciousness, and release our attachment to our body and who we think we are, our whole identity, the story of me, you can see how it just matters less and less. Nothing ultimately in the end is worth getting upset about in this life. It is what it is. And your equanimity, your balance of your mind, to be able to see things clearly as they are, make decisions, good decisions, clear decisions, is the most important currency. That's all that matters. We don't make good decisions when we're reacting, when we're judging, when we want things to be different. I watched, so that's somewhat? Okay, yeah, let me keep going. Joseph Campbell, one of my favorite authors, recently read something on the difference between thinking and learning to think. And that the thinking that we're suffering from, most or not all of us, is this reactive thinking. It's not constructive, it's not productive, it's judgy thinking. It's wanting what already has happened to be different, which is ludicrous if you think about it. Most of the thoughts that drive us nuts very quickly dissolve once we poke at them a little bit. We'll do that today. And so the true thinking isn't really taught anywhere, like constructive, self-reflective thinking. Maybe you've heard of self-reflective writing, but it's not really a prominent thing, the self-reflective thinking, to be in your awareness, thinking from that place. That's not really taught anywhere that I'm aware of. We can go deeper later. Okay. Yes?
Just a quick one to follow. You are at the stage of definition right now?
No, I'm at the stage of overview, but I like to talk.
Overview. Okay. So I have
Yes.
a blockage, if I can remove it.
Yes, let's remove
A
it.
very scientific, very boring engineering mind. You started with a statement that completely blocked your idea of my mind. So I'd like to remove that statement so I can learn something. The first one is labeling. Today we completely deep into the learning, the humans trying to make machines learn, etc. And happens to be one of my favorite interests right now. And you just negated one of the base principle of that machine learning, which is quick labeling and inferences and reinforcing learning. So by negating that completely, so what is your approach from it? Is it a scientific approach? Is it a mix between two? What are we talking about?
So the labeling, the defining, and the algorithms, and the going through different cycles of questions, and re-evaluating your own results. That's kind of what AI does really well. Within that realm, on that plane, that's all beautiful, valid, and amazing. What we're talking about here is the connection to source, essentially, your connection to a higher power that fuels you, that inspires you, that you can call it your higher self, your inner divinity, your gut, your intuition, your heart space, your inner being, whatever you want to give it a name. but to be connected to that, because that's your GPS in life. Along the way, you can fall in love with machine learning, you can fall in love with aerodynamics, you can fall in love with going to other planets, whatever that is. That's the underpinning of that is, do you know yourself? Do you know who you are?
In other words, fall in love with your own machine learning.
Yeah, you could say that. That's pretty good, actually. That's a beautiful bridge.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay.
100%.
All right, good. Beautiful. All right. Okay. So let's move beyond this. Oh yeah, at the end, if we have time, we'll do a bonus energy clearing, which might help with that as well. Your machine, there'll be a reboot. All right, it's just a quick, dry explanation. What is overthinking? Overthinking is the process of continuously dwelling. That's in italics, dwelling. This is not about shutting down your thoughts. It's not about pushing thoughts away or thinking less. Overthinking is essentially just replaying a thought over and over and over. And this is why late at night, we can't go to sleep. This is how we spend sitting on sofas and trying to predict the future. It's one of my favorite questions. Who here can predict the future? No one? Because we all live as if we can. Always making a plan for tomorrow and the next day, outcomes, milestones, 1-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. We're all raised to plan out our life all the way to the end. And then we compare whatever's happening to our plan, and we get frustrated when it happens differently. Next question. Whose life here has gone according to plan? No one, still. It's kind of a rhetorical question, but heck, the world teaches us we should pursue our plan. I'm waiting for that one person to prove me wrong, that this doesn't really work. But it doesn't work. Life happens so differently. And when we're in it, when we're in the different, when we're in the messiness and the chaos, and this shouldn't be happening, it's not so much fun. But we always come out wiser. Next question. Who here would, knowing that your life has gone completely differently, would give your life back? And why is that? It's because our wisdom is tied to our struggles. The more you know, the deeper connection that you have to yourself is because of what you've been through, what you've had to overcome. So, not only is your wisdom tied to your struggles, your calling is tied to your struggles. One of the most common questions is like, what's my purpose? What's my true calling? Look at your struggles. Look at what you've suffered from and through. That's where you grow authenticity. That's what deepens us. That's where we become genuine so that we can help others. They can see that in us. We're not just talking the talk. We've lived something. We're real. And you can show up real. Doors open. Everyone wants that for themselves. They want you on their team. They want you in their company. They want you to be in a relationship with them, because real is the only real currency. Obsessing over details, worrying about potential. So again, in our head, this is where past and future live. There's nothing complicated about what's happening right now. There's a floor, we're sitting, there's somebody stapling or doing construction. Very simple. There's a fan, I see some breeze. Very simple. But if I said, oh, that stapling construction shouldn't be happening right now. Why me? Don't they know this is a class going on here, and I want to focus. That's the story, that's the noise, that's the mind chatter that complicates things. Imagine something happening without you there to comment on it. That's objective reality. Objective reality, so simple. Seeing things as they are, so hard to do, but still so simple. All the complication from our reaction to things falls away. Our feelings, our thoughts and feelings, every thought is connected to a feeling, naturally come and go. But we don't actually feel our feelings. We don't allow them to arise and pass. We judge them, we react to them, we want them to be different. I don't want to be feeling this way, or, ooh, I do want to be feeling this way. The mind injecting itself into our feeling flow, into our feeling state. So there's the onset of a feeling, and immediately we jump in, we react to it. And then something like this happens. And so this reaction, the reaction to the feeling, comes from this place that we'll just summarize as the story of me. It's just as a bucket, as a container. All the things we identify with are the things we react from. All the things we're attached to are the things we then need to be defensive about and make sure everyone agrees with us, or block out the differing opinions, because that's how we feel like we're being intruded upon. It's so hard to let in something fresh and something new into our personal narrative. It's because it makes us so defensive, and it's just in our head. So in the meantime, flow, objective reality, the simplicity of sights and sounds and tastes and touches and tastes and smells, everything is just simple until we start judging it, until we start creating a big story on top of it, which is our subjective reality. Almost no one lives in objective reality. You'd have to be I don't know, Zen, last lifetime Buddha level for you to be truly, completely non-reactive, just experience things as they are all the time. I don't know if there's a human amongst us. But all of us live in our subjective reality. And it's a question of to what degree do we live in our subjective reality. It's a fascinating concept to know that every single one of you is living in your own world. The person next to you has a completely different world. It's your lens on life, it's your filters, it's your programming and conditioning and your experiences and your lineage. That is what you're filtering what's happening, the objective reality, through, and adding your stuff to it. Yes?
It's like not an objective reality, it's very subjective.
Is an objective reality
Very subjective?
very subjective?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, like, an objective reality, seeing things as they are, it can be also very subjective because two people can see the same things in different ways, but they're not.
Well, yeah, there's a difference between describing things, language, emotionally, different things. This refers more to a car drives by, the windows down, there's loud music playing, and that's it. Versus, and that being the objective reality, versus cars driving, this rude person is at the helm, they shouldn't have a driver's license, don't they know that they're disturbing the peace? They should at least put the window up, and what kind of trash music is that anyway? And I mean, just on and on and on. So that's the subjective part of that. There's a fun little exercise, especially here where there's a lot of scooter noise, right? You might be sitting at a cafe or sitting near the street, and even in the morning, and the scooter sounds, zoom, zoom, scooters coming by. Next time that happens and you feel yourself annoyed by it, why are these scooters are driving like this? And then especially the ones that have modified pipes. Oh,
Or the ones that they're driving on the sidewalk.
on the sidewalk and just all of that, right? Next time that happens, you feel yourself triggered by that, flip it around. Look for, expect, welcome the next scooter. I can't wait till the next one comes. Yes, there it is. Oh, wow. You've now moved through your resistance of it, and you'll just feel, as a matter of cultivating greater consciousness and awareness around the matter, is that, oh, wow, this whole piece here, that was my resistance to this. And it just fell away. And all that stuckness there, the blockness and the energy that it took to maintain that, to just get a read on that, and like, wow, you're doing this in all areas of life where we resist something. Our biggest issue with other people is wanting them to be somebody they're not.
Just a quick hack on that. Power yoga every morning helps you practice that.
Yes, absolutely. Physicality.
This is a quick hack.
Many different hacks, yes. Even in my experience, the greatest insights came when moving. So you can sit and meditate, it's great, it breaks up stuck energy, but then only till you start moving that it actually kind of leaves you and surfaces. So definitely motion. Yes?
Like, if I'm gonna be excited for the next power contract, what struck me was like spiritual bypassing. Like, I don't know, but like,
So the question about spiritual bypass.
yeah.
I always say when people bring up spiritual bypass, these other people, they're doing this or that, and they're just bypassing. I say, let them. This is part of their journey. This is their stepping stone, their learning curve. You're just judging them.
No, I mean,
What?
I think I'm also to fool myself sometimes.
Mhm.
I don't want to fool myself by doing it. It's more like in the relation to myself.
Yeah, I didn't mean that I wasn't responding to you directly. But when you notice people being different, again, most of our issue, most of our energy drain, this piece right here, I don't know, put a number on it, 90%? 90% of our energy goes into maintaining and augmenting our story, resisting, controlling, trying to steer life based on this guy. And that's where all the complexity happens. That's where the energy drain happens. I was driving down a big road in LA one time, and I was a consultant to a lot of ad agencies and media companies, and I had taken on too much work. You tend to say yes as a consultant to everything that comes along, and because a lot of it just falls by the wayside or it doesn't last, but you don't really know. In this particular time, everything came through. I was just massively overloaded. I was starting to have panic attacks. Driving from one office to the next office, trying to anticipate every next motion, every next meeting, who's going to be there, what they're going to say, what I need to say, all of this. And I was starting to freak out and have panic attacks around this. So this particular time, I pulled over because I felt the next one coming on. And I don't know why, but fortunately, this time, something inside of me said no to the panic attack and yes to letting go. Just letting go of control. I can't anticipate, I can't predict what's going to happen, who's going to be there, if the projector will work or not, or am I prepared for every possible question. All of that noise just fell away off my shoulders. And so a huge chunk of energy suddenly was there again. I could take on even more projects, I felt like. But realizing, having that experience of like, wow, I was creating most of my own heaviness in my life. I was generating all of that noise. That was clearly, the body thinks of it as real, what you give your attention to. Again, these are all just imagined events, but it's as real as can get. A side note on that. People often have an issue with imagination. They think it's not real. Well, when it comes to thoughts about your future, right? The things that cause us anxiety, that's just imagine. That's what if, that's should, could, might. So that's also imagination. Yet there we accept that form of imagination, even though we suffer from it clearly, physically and emotionally and spiritually. Yet in other areas where visualizing your best life, manifesting the highest version of yourself, that's where we struggle with, no, I don't really believe that. You know, the mind comes in, I'm just imagining, I'm just making things up. So which is it now? Ultimately, the body responds, placebo effect, mock surgeries, fascinating stuff. People wheeled into operating room and going through the motions and then being wheeled out, and they heal. Power of the mind. But if we're stressed about something, even though it hasn't happened yet, it's as real as can be. So it shouldn't be downplayed. We'll talk about depression later. But it still is only a thought that we're giving our attention to. And this realm right here, the reactive realm, is just full of thoughts that we give our attention to. The story of me, I call it a truth structure. Based on this truth structure, we create a control grid in our life. And we try to navigate and put all the pieces in place. And once all this is in place, then I'll be happy, I'll be free, I'll be wealthy, whatever the projection is. And so we sacrifice our life now in pursuit of this imaginary picture that we think will, once we get there, never end. It'll just be static. It's, again, one of these things, when you start poking at our thoughts, very quickly it reveals itself that how even rationally thinking about these things, it doesn't make sense. Life will not be static ever. It's not going to stop. What were we thinking? Tomorrow will be another day. New ideas, new inspirations. And the more in sync we are with that, the more aligned we feel, the more in the flow we are, the more the greater current takes over. You don't feel so lonely. You don't feel so separate. Labels, definitions. Every time we label something, everything we define, everything that we now think of as known, it creates staleness and distance. As soon as you know something, now it's no longer alive. Now you can use it in your control grid and to manipulate things. And every time you label something, define something, it becomes distant. I'm over here, and that which I define and label is over there. You created a little hit, little conceptual and energetic hit of separateness, of distance. And we do this all day long, hundreds, thousands of times. Everything we see, we just define it. Nothing can enter our experience without us immediately putting a label on it. Good or bad, right or wrong, for me, against me. So we're constantly keeping ourselves separate from the aliveness, from the flow. It's so hard what we're doing, what we've been conditioned to, the way we're conditioned to live. To maintain this constant level of reactivity and judging and trying to figure things out and know things ahead of time, predicting the future, anticipate every possible permutation. Life is so amazing and diverse, yet we use that in an inverse way to make ourselves feel stressed about it. You could just as easily, with a reframe, show up and go, I can't wait to see what happens. I can't wait to see what comes next. Now you're open, you're receiving, you're present, you're seeing things. You're not bringing in the junk from the past and the projections of the future. Everything gets a lot simpler very quickly. And we really try hard to maintain this, and we put a lot of energy in our time. We're all trying to live long, productive, healthy lives, but we're lost in thought up to 2/3 of the day. 60% of your life, we're not really here. It's amazing. Nobody really talks about that. It's because everyone is overthinking. Everyone is in their heads. And that's where you can justify anything. If you look out into the world and you see wherever injustice is happening, it's done by people who live in their heads. They're not connected to their conscience. Otherwise, they couldn't do that to others because that's not something they would do to themselves. That's your relationship, again, with yourself that we're cultivating, that awareness is. Awareness is answering to your own conscience. All right. Yes, please.
So are we doing this because we are constantly not satisfied with what we already have? Or why are we doing this? Why are we predicting constantly and not saying every day, I cannot wait for happen?
Yes, great question. It's primarily because of the characteristics of the mind. Let me see what comes next here. Number one, perfect transition, thank you. Fear of the unknown. When we live through the mind is designed to know things. Again, it's good at that. It's great at that. It's fantastic at that. But when we task it to navigate life on our behalf, it freaks out. It actually still does the best it can, but it freaks out because life is unknown. It's unknowable. Your future, your life is unknowable. And so what does it try to do? Just project into the future, predict the future, come up with something. This is how silly and ridiculous this really is. It predicts something, that something doesn't happen, and then it gets upset. That's essentially what's happening. And it's only needing to predict something because it's unknown. So it tries to project just something. You can't even take a shower without thinking about what happens next. What am I going to do when I get out? We can't enjoy the warm, bubbly environment, the water, the steam. We're not present. The mind, if we're in our mind, living by the mind, is always thinking about the next unknown moment and then projecting something it thinks it knows into it. And then the madness is that it never is exactly the way. Even if it gets close, it's never, you can't predict what a future moment feels like. There's an energy to it. There's a deeper presence that even if you were to perfectly predict the environment, the number of actors, the music that's playing, the questions that would get asked, whatever, even if you predicted all of that, it would still feel different. And you might have experienced this maybe in school or at work where you prepare really, really well. You've got everything down. You've got your knowledge is there. You've got your slides ready and all that. And then you get up in front of people or up on stage and you freak out. Because it feels different. And living from a plan from the past, you cannot anticipate what it will feel like when it becomes real, when that moment comes along. It's always going to be unique. And that just assumes, on an example basis, that you could predict what will happen. It never happens that way. And nor would you want it to. Again, this fallacy that we're wrapped up in this idea that we would want a predictable life. And we get so upset by that we get to a point where we want a life where we do nothing. Like we can just escape to a tropical island and do nothing. This idea of predicting and controlling life exhausts us to the point where we have to, what we long for is, I just don't want to do anything anymore. And even just saying that, I want to do nothing, sounds and feels terrible. That you're living your life in such a way, the mind-driven way, that you'd get to the point where you'd want to do nothing. Yes, please.
So mental rehearsal, is that something that's not valuable then, you think? Like if you wake up in the morning and you just scan your day and you mentally rehearse like how you're going to feel, you meet somebody, like in a way that feels good.
Yeah.
Is that preventing the moment from arising in an unexpected way?
I would say that the key words where it feels good.
Okay.
So as long as you're feeling good, you're probably not planning a whole lot too much. You're not predicting too much, because we get anxious once we start planning and predicting, oh my God, what if this happens? So as long as you're feeling good, whatever degree that is, yes, you can go ahead and do that. Yes, please.
Just a comment on your doing nothing. Isn't that the ultimate luxury today?
Yes.
Everybody's doing so many things to do nothing.
Well, it's what's the intention? Are you doing nothing intentionally, or from a place of exhaustion and running yourself into the ground because you've been overthinking? Ultimately, there's this thing called productive rest. I do a separate workshop on that. I think it's in the slides today. I can address it now. You can design your life in such a way, your every day. In fact, we have an exercise around that. So that you're not always using one, just your left brain or just your right brain, or you're not just physically, or you're engaging in different things that nurture you differently to keep the flow, to keep the engagement, to keep the connection to aliveness, so that when you go back to maybe your primary activity or your job or primary project, that you're not coming from numbing out, binge eating, binge watching Netflix, and now trying to get back up and do something you're passionate about. You want to maintain, because the fuel from doing other things like cooking, walking in nature, I mean, we talked about exercise. There's so many different things, sharing with friends, journaling. I mean, there's so many things you can do to keep the flow going, keep your connectedness going to your own aliveness, to the world. I mean, just stare and look what's out there. It's crazy, this crazy world. And then when you go back, it's not like you're trying to pick yourself up from the floor. Now, there is a point, even in productive rest, where you do need a break, but you really, really need a break where you do nothing. And then in that space, when you're doing nothing with intention, your nothing becomes your strongest doing. Because in that state of nothingness, you're not attaching yourself, you're not in the world of expectations, you're not somewhere lost in thought. You can call that the ultimate manifestation state, is to be doing nothing with total intention, total presence. Because now you're in receiving mode, mega receiving mode. You're not distracted by any to-do list or anything. Everything is off to the side, and you're just being. And then you can really invite new ideas and wherever it takes you. So yes, but then even the not doing anything is so potent. It's actually, with intention, it's the most potent thing you can do. Yes, please.
How do you maintain having an intention while detaching from an outcome?
Ah. Yeah. So. Okay. All right. Good. The outcome reveals itself. So attaching ourselves to an outcome is living for a certain goal and then comparing what happens along the way. When you can go by what feels right and you're staying open with just feels good, this is my GPS, my navigation, North Star, then your life starts to take on a direction of its own. It just shows itself. And then eventually you see, oh, wow, this is where it's headed. And then you really lock in and okay, and you might go into doer mode there and even forget about your mindfulness practice for a while once that reveals itself. But it's shown itself out of alignment, not because you had an idea that you're just kind of making up in your head. An easy test, simple test to know whether you're just thinking up something versus a true inner calling is that thinking up something usually it feels and sounds fantastic. Oh, it's going to be so great. You're just seeing the world through rosy-colored lenses. I'm going to be happy. It's going to be successful. It's just like a spectacle. A true calling, just like the word implies, you're not there yet. It's calling you to something. That means you have to grow, and growth is uncomfortable. So there's a sense of discomfort. Oh no, I have to do this. But I'm going to do it anyway because I feel its resonance so deeply. So there's growth there. You may have to take classes. You may have to expand your own practice, whatever it is. But there's a sense of duty and responsibility and discomfort when it comes to your true calling. Again, the connection to Your wisdom is tied to your suffering. Your calling is tied to your suffering. It's not pleasant when we're in the suffering, but when we come out of on the other side and it's clear this had to happen. This had to happen because exactly of who I am at that time. There's no reason to belittle yourself or feel guilty or ashamed that anything happened in the past. This was a reflection, a mirror of who you were then, and you got exactly, because life isn't happening to us. We're not separate from life. It's happening because of us, because of us. We're the mirror, and then we move to for us. So this transition between the 5 levels of awareness, my latest book. Life is happening to you. We think we're a victim. Then we move into, well, actually, everything I see is because of how I see it, how I interpret it. Person next to me, same exact situation, completely different take. But life is happening because of us. And then you go, well, if it's happening because of me, then I have 100% control over my happiness. And then it dawns on you, oh, that means I'm 100% responsible for my happiness also. I'm going to have to do the work. No one's going to come and save you. Somehow we grow up that way, thinking like the world is somehow going to make us happy and come to the rescue. And then eventually when you work through the 4, life is happening for you, okay, it's a mirror, and okay, I'm going to welcome everything that happens and practice acceptance, acceptance, and eventually with greater awareness and non-resistance, we move into level 4 as I define it, which is through. Life is happening through us. You're a container, a witnessing presence. And then non-resistance, there's a flow, and you're part of that. And then eventually, level 5, unity consciousness, life is happening as you. And really, it's the first 3 stages that what I define as awakening, right? And then the last 2 as enlightenment. And it doesn't mean that you're just in one level. There could be different parts of you that are highly conscious, highly aware. Maybe in love, you've just got it down. You're a fantastic partner or parent. But finances, you suck. You don't know how to handle money. We have different levels of awareness in different areas of life. So it's never just, I'm in this one level. But again, it's all about awareness. That's all that matters here. It's not about judging yourself. It's just how much more aware can I become about myself? I'll come to you next. I'm sorry? The first one? The first one. Oh, the 5th one. Life is happening as you. As you. There's level 5 is no self. So your attachments, this is a story of me. And as we move down, it's funny because we think of awareness and growth as an outward thing that we're expanding into our environment. But it's actually inverse. There's source. We're surrounded by source. It's pushing on us. It's bombarding us gently but firmly. It will not let us stay small. Life isn't annoying us for the sake of annoying us. It's annoying us because it wants us to be whole. It wants us to be complete. It doesn't want us to be lonely, afraid, and small, and full of limiting beliefs. Every time we feel triggered, it's pointing to where do we need to grow, where do we need to put attention to, because there's some unhealed wound there. So it's really inverse. Level 5 awareness is on the outer. That's identification with mind. Right? And then as we gain greater awareness, a big piece of that is coming into our body. Mind and body. And so then we already have a greater balance. I went to take singing classes many years ago. I went to a great person in LA and sat down at the piano, sang, And she said, no, stop right there. We're going to have to work on your inner voice first. I'm like, inner voice? This is before any awakening, any spiritual stuff. And I'm like, what's that? And I had my first past life regression on her living room floor that night. Life is always going to bring us what we need to move us forward. So it doesn't want us to stay small. And once you let go of yourself, your identification with self, identification with thoughts and your feelings, all the story of me, the more you let go of that, the more you move towards objective reality. Eventually, there's flow, but eventually underneath all of this, there is no self. Right? And that's unity consciousness. Oh. I call this pure presence. And then there's awareness. And then in the middle right there is meta-awareness. You're aware that you're aware. That's essentially unity consciousness. You're so deeply entrenched in your awareness of being aware. There's no connection to the me anymore. There's advanced stuff. Yes?
The self, is that similar to the ego? Is it when you talk about...
I like Eckhart Tolle's definition of ego the best. He says ego is identification with thoughts. It's just, that's where you feel reactive and defensive and judgmental. That's where it comes from. My early writings, I never used ego because in myself and the people around me, I felt like it was just something that we reject about ourselves. It's like, I don't, my ego and all that stuff. And I wanted to write, the essence of my writing was to be completely non-abrasive, non-judgmental. So I kind of removed that whole thing. But yeah, it's when do we do things that aren't good for ourselves? It's when we're listening to thoughts without the ability to discern, oh, this is a thought that doesn't feel good, it doesn't behoove me to give my attention to. We have to have awareness of that. Versus this other thought is beneficial, I'm going to accept that one, go with that, give my attention to that. So again, just choosing which thoughts to engage with. That will just change your life massively. Massively. That's really what's being free is about. This whole thing. This is where fear lives. Control. Lack. People sometimes get upset when I say everything you've created in your life has come from lack. Anyone? Anyone upset? People go, no, I love my children. No, I work for my degrees and I have my career. I deserve all this. It's not meant to be offensive. If there was a better word, I would use it. Thought about it ad nauseum. But essentially, that's what defines what's the motivation. You're doing something in expectation that is going to lead you to feel better. It's going to lead you to have something you currently don't have. That's lack. There's no two ways about it. And so when we live from our conditioned mind, we're manifesting from lack, fear, and control. Everything, every situation. And the only difference, everyone's life will take that path. And the only difference, the only choice that you have is, do you manifest unconsciously from this fear, lack, and control? And then you create these big life situations. You wanted kids or you wanted a partner because they would love you a certain way because you didn't get it as a child. There's no shame in any of that, but that is the lack or the fear that was motivating that decision. And then you have that situation, you realize, oh, they don't love me the way they're their own people, and like my partner's still evolving, all this stuff. And then you have a choice. You can stay in resistance, and you just be miserable and continuing that pattern, or you can accept. Most people actually accept because it's just too hard to be in resistance all the time. It's just too hard to keep fighting. So what happens is you surrender, you let go. And in that surrender, you deepen. You've just let go of expectations, of attachments. And so life deepened you, and it was just a long road to get there. And the only choice that we do have is to manifest from consciousness, from I'm aware of my lack, I'm aware of my wounds, I'm aware of these things. I can do something about them to release them and work through them now, but I'll never be perfect. But with that awareness of my imperfection, I can go into relationships, I can go into creating situations and circumstances that are going to be constructive. There's an awareness around what's motivating you. We're here to learn, we're here to grow. We're not here to have some kind of perfect life that we imagine. Early on in our journey, we always get upset that life is getting in the way of the best life that we imagine for ourselves. And then later we realize we can't imagine our best life. The mind is way too limited, way too fickle to be able to predict and manage and project this perfect life for ourselves. It's based on what you already know. The whole thing. Back there. Did you have a question? Yeah. Oh, you forgot. Okay, good. Yes.
Can you talk about that? Like, could you give an example of that? So if I'm not creating from lack, unconsciously, but I want to create, like as a business owner or just a teacher, you bring your surrender, your deepening, your manifesting from consciousness. Can you just give an example of what that looks like? It's not coming from the unconscious lack.
So the tricky thing, did everyone hear the question? An example of, practical example of manifesting from conscious lack.
Yeah, because even that sounds like counterintuitive. Like, wait, but I want to get rid of the lack?
If you could get rid of it entirely, yes. But we got to keep living. We can't set ourselves aside and just say, hey, I'm going to work on myself for X amount of time, a projection, a plan, an expectation already contained within that. And then say, okay, once I get to that outcome, once I get to that place, then I'm ready to start my business, or then I'm ready to get in a relationship again. It's just life doesn't work that way. So with awareness, work through as much as you can, but you can't wait. You can't wait for life to happen, and life won't wait for you to happen. You're going to learn things that in partnership that you just can't on your own. You're going to learn things founding a business that you just can't. You take as many classes as you want or have great mentors. It helps, but there's things there that of how you respond to certain situations, you respond to certain pressure, your creativity. The co-creative process is a process of doing. It's flow, it's happening. You don't co-create by just sitting around and thinking about things. It doesn't work. You realize yourself, you discover who you are through the doing. Yes?
So, practical example.
Oh, practical example.
Create a conscious lack.
Yeah. So, if you did you want a specific one, either the relationship or the business? Business, okay. All right. Being aware that I'm good at this particular skill, but I really, maybe you're a designer or you're a leader, an inspiration to others, but you're not great at strategy, you're not great at marketing. The awareness of what you're good at and what you lack will help you make a decision of who to partner with. We tend to, and I did this, you saw the 17 startups I founded, we tend to pick people like ourselves, and that's the worst thing to do, because you're just going to butt heads and you're not covering any skill set that is actually needed. You're just kind of bringing more friends and people that you know into it. And that is right, one of the things, we do entire business classes around this, that will determine the success of your company is who are you partnering with. And the best partners, the most successful partners, often they're tandems, is people who complement each other, but they're very different. So that's an example of self-awareness. This is my weakness. This is not something I'm good at. I tend to overreact, so not just skill set, I tend to overreact to stress or deadlines. Who can I bring on board that, well, first, what classes can I take? What practice can I establish for myself so that I don't let stress out on my colleagues or employees? But who can I bring on board who balances that out? They have a calm demeanor. Maybe they can be a mentor even in that regard to me. Just the more awareness, the better. And we'll never be perfect. There's no like waiting till you've reached some kind of time. Life will send you the right or wrong people based on what lesson needs to be learned anyway. So taking on a mindset, this can dissolve suffering, a big chunk of it from one moment to the next, is to take on the mindset of a student. You're not supposed to be perfect, even though that's what we're raised to believe. A mistake is the worst thing you can do. The way life works, the way we learn is to walk, for example, is by falling down. In the startup scene, which is why I spend a lot of time there, is because they understand this piece. Fail fast, fail often, fail forward is the mantra. This is how we learn. Replace failure with learning. Replace learning with growing. And growing can only happen while doing. Yes.
So if I understand, overthinking comes from lack of understanding of our own prediction model, and we get stuck into a thinking loop. That's the first symptom, right?
Yeah.
So are we trying to figure out our own prediction model here? Or you're saying there's no prediction model?
It's coming out of the prediction model.
So you're saying there is no prediction model?
There is knowing yourself and having the trust to show up and respond to what's there.
Okay, so let me just focus on this prediction model thing.
Yeah.
So you're saying there is no prediction model, or you're saying the prediction model is too complicated, so we call it random?
It's too complicated, so we call it random, we call it coincidental, we call it all kinds of, we call miracles because they don't fit our...
So you're okay, so I just want to understand
Yes.
where you're going.
Yeah, this is great. You should write a book on that.
Maybe I will.
Yes.
Can you repeat this last one? Knowing yourself, what you said.
Ultimately, what all that comes down to is knowing yourself and showing up and trusting that you'll know to respond to what's there. If you just do it a couple times, it becomes real. You can feel that. Oh my God, I just have to show up. Be real, right? This whole thing of being real. Show up. The more you know yourself, the better you can show up. And then just respond to what's there. And you develop a trust that is so like people respond more positive to you. I mentioned before, they want you on their team. You're getting the jobs now, and everyone keeps hiring you back or just wants to be around you. You feel that energy of realness, of authenticity, when you just show up and to respond to what's actually there. It's you bring clarity and simplicity and problem-solving mindset in a corporate environment. You're not lingering on things that have already happened, pointing the finger like everyone else. They're in their drama and like, oh, whose fault was it? All of that stuff. That's just the noise. That's past. It's past. It doesn't help to spend any energy on that. I think we all know that. It's just we get caught up in our reactive patterns and these thought loops. So learning to show up. This is not to say that you don't have experience, that you don't have a skill set. You should know your things. You're getting hired or paid to do something. That's very different. Prepare, that's okay, right? The question about staying in that positive mindset of preparing, but as long as you're feeling good about your preparation and mental rehearsal, then you're not over-planning. It's just a beautiful gauge. Somebody, a couple workshops ago, I think it was this one, asked, how do I know the difference between working in the flow, the co-creative process, and things are happening almost on their own. I'm led by inspiration. The difference between that and overworking, when I start to get stuck and mental fatigue sets in, all these things. And I asked, well, how does it feel? One feels light and easy and flowy and fun and inspired. The other one feels like you're dragging your feet, banging your head, mental fatigue and exhaustion. I mean, it's so clear. Somehow we've forgotten that our feelings are our best indicator, our best GPS, our best guidance. We've somehow gotten away from that. Like our feelings are not to be trusted. They're not just the best guidance, they're the only guidance. You can't trust your mind, the one that wants to project and predict and control everything. You can't trust other people. They have some experience. You can listen to them, but you still have to feel like what resonates for you. What is your truth, your blueprint? That's what resonates. That's a feeling. That's not a knowing. It doesn't come in from the mind. It's like this feels right. And in the scale of life, you can't know the truth anyway. Anyway, it's not possible. Every single one of us has, I'm sure, an example of maybe there was a dream job. You landed a dream job. It was amazing. On paper, it looked fantastic. And then 6 months later, you're suffering from burnout, and it's a toxic environment, and you just hate your life. What happened there? You thought you knew the truth, and it turned out to be different. Vice versa is probably also an example in your life about something that was detrimental and felt like it was maybe even a disaster, and then later on it turned out to be a blessing. Right? And if you want to take this into the absurd, you could say, if I spend an extra 5 seconds brushing my teeth 10 years ago, it will impact at what point I'll be crossing the street 10 years from now. We just can't know the truth. We can't control life. We don't know what's going to happen. And pretending like we do is the source of most of our suffering. Learning to know what resonates, being grounded in your body, and then showing up and responding to what's there. What's there is very simple. It's real. You're not introducing any elements that aren't there from your past. And you're not bringing in expectations of the future. This is a very simple present moment. It's very simple each and every time. Yes. Yeah, so more of a practical, what can we do to stay present? You mentioned put our awareness into our root chakra. That's basically the direction already, is to be aware of our body. Specifically, be aware of the sensations. So where do feelings show up? I remember a time when I couldn't have answered that. I was like, well, feelings are just kind of vague bubbles that float around in your head. It took me forever. Finally, I understood, somebody pointed out, teacher pointed out, that feelings are sensations that show up somewhere in your body. I was like, wow. And then the next step is you can observe those sensations, which means that you are not your feelings. You are not your thoughts. You're not your feelings. You're the awareness of those things. So now you can stay, and this is the beautiful design of life. Again, this is just such simplicity and efficiency, really. It's like, how do I stay present? Use your senses. Actually see what you're seeing, hear what you're hearing, taste what you're tasting, smell what you're smelling, touch what you're feeling. And that's what keeps you present. We're not doing that because we react to the inputs based on past conditioning. And that interpretation of the conditioned mind shows up as sensations in our body. And then we react to that with this whole thing. So to come out of this story of me, to stay present more often, it's not an on-off switch, is to just feel your feelings fully all the time. And then the mind goes, oh, but your feelings are harsh and they're hard and they're painful, and I don't want to feel my feelings. Well, it's only because the mind is used to this piece. Yeah, and here feelings are really difficult. A lot of them are scary. You don't want to go there. You don't want to open that can of worms. But the more you come out of your subjective attachment, the more you come down to, well, 90% of my energy is just reactivity to the feeling. That's what we're reacting to. We're not reacting to the environment. We're reacting to how we interpret that environment based on the sensation that shows up in our body. We're actually reacting to the sensation. Somebody says something to trigger you. Typically, we go, stupid person, how dare they? You blame them. It's their fault for making you feel a certain way. Now you're reactive. Now you're judging. Now you're blaming. Now you're enthralled in you're fighting. There's no acceptance in there whatsoever. It's total resistance. As opposed to hearing whatever they said triggered you. Oh, I notice I feel it here. It's an unpleasant feeling. What they said was maybe not nice. I'm going to stay with this, right? And I'm going to let it pass again. What was potentially a huge drama or dangerous situation even, hurtful, is now a simple, wow, the sensation itself is very manageable, and it comes and goes and rises and passes on its own if I don't react to it. I don't attach myself to it, and then the bigger story of me. So now, throughout this experience, you maintain the equilibrium of your mind. You stay balanced, you stay clear. And now you can respond to the situation. You may say something, you may set boundaries, you may just walk away, whatever. You're not acting from reactivity to whatever this person is brought into your environment. Night and day. Staying balanced, staying real, working with what's there, not staying out of reactivity, and just taking clear action. Buddhists call it right action, because the motive of your feelings, of your action, is in the right place. Right? You're coming from, maybe this person deserves empathy. Maybe they've had a rough day. If we go into reactivity about me and what are they saying, I think you've lost that chance to actually see what's there. Maybe they just need to release and let go of some energy. Maybe they are a mean person and you just kind of like walk away and say, I'm not letting them into my space again. Whatever it is, now you're flowing. You're not amplifying the whole situation, because that's what happens when we react. We miss out on all these other experiences that could be happening. You could be staring the business opportunity of a lifetime in the face, or the love of a lifetime is right in front of you, or beautiful sunset, or just the present moment. But you miss it all because you're reacting to how you want it to be. And that's just an attachment to thought. Yes, please.
I want to go back to your business. And I want to ask you, if I understood correctly, but also, how do you combine that, what in terms of saying, of feeling or being guided by your feelings to know what's right, but also what you said before about the true quality that you have, it only comes to comfort.
Yes. Yes. Does the question imply that if a feeling is uncomfortable, that you would then not see the truth in it?
I'm just going back to what you said about how you know your flow states, or like
Yeah.
if you're just going with burnout, then you should trust your feelings. So if something's discomforting, then you might be going towards burnout.
Yes. Great question. Thank you for trying to poke holes in this. The key to observing your sensations being connected to your body, where life is just flowing through you, is to notice the discomfort but maintain a clear mind. Discomfort with reactivity is a completely different outcome. Now the whole situation becomes very combustible and, who knows, dramatic. But you can feel the actual discomfort. This level of discomfort it's not much. And you can notice that, maintain a clear mind, maintain a clear picture of what's happening around you. And most importantly, you're feeling your inner resonance. So this is a deeper inner wisdom. The reactivity, the most damaging part of it is that it cuts us off from our intuition, cuts us off from like a deeper wisdom, our body wisdom. Now we're reactive, we're in our heads.
What cuts us off?
When we react. Right? But when we can actually feel whatever is arising, such as discomfort, but not react to the discomfort, then you're in the best possible place. That discomfort has a message for you. That message might be, avoid the situation in the future, or there's something there that I need to work on in myself, or you get a download like, wow, this is a whole area of exploration that I'm going to go into, and you're feeling that way because your past, you had certain experiences that have led to you now connecting the dots around it. So reactive discomfort, then we get lost. But pure discomfort, plain discomfort, is good and necessary and beautiful ultimately, because your awareness of your feelings elevates you into higher level of awareness. Your awareness is such a big container because you're headed towards unity consciousness, the one consciousness, the great awareness, that all these little human experiences are very small. We're all moving in that direction. So the discomfort of certain things is like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, right? It's only when we glom onto, okay, here comes one thought, and like you attach yourself. And then you go up and down, and then the next thought. And you go up and down, and like that's the roller coaster experience. And that's when we feel really small and anxious and afraid and separate. But now you've got perspective. You're a much bigger presence container to your own feelings, to your own thoughts. And they can't get to you anymore. They can't rattle you in a really big way. Uncomfortable, yes. Comfortable, also yes. But no more of this like giving your power over to those thoughts. Okay. Yes, please.
I have a sort of adjacent question
Yes.
to that, just to unwrap it a little bit more. So you mentioned that it's important to show up and be present and be ready, but it usually requires some level of healthy preparation. You can't just be like, yeah, I didn't learn about anything about you, my client, but I'm ready and present. Like it's not how the world works. So how to distinguish between healthy preparation, so falling of like integrity and responsibility and accountability when you know that you need to invest time to prepare and learn things, versus overthinking and anxiety, which is like, okay, I need to spend another 10 hours. How do you find the balance?
Yeah. It's a little bit related to earlier of like, how can you plan or mentally rehearse without, where do you know, where's the line? And the line is, are you still feeling good? Are you still feeling you're looking forward to this opportunity or presentation or meeting, whatever it is? Then you can feel the difference here. You're in an open state. You're in receiving mode. You're collaborating with what's going to show up. You're going to show up and you'll be ready to see what's there, as opposed to really, once you get too much in your head, your energy field closes down. You get really internal or self-absorbed, and in that state, you're then comparing what is happening to because you're mainly in your mind. So there's nothing wrong with. You should be, confident about your skills and your education and your experience. Of course, you bring that. But the first part, I would say, yes, you can show up. And being real is more important than being prepared perfectly. The ability to say, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that right now, but I'll get it for you. That is a show of strength and reliability and power and realness that will impress people. So it's more important to show up and be real and be there, and you're not going to lose your... In fact, you can tap into your experience and your humanity more readily, even if you're not perfectly prepared to find solutions and actually come up with something new on the spot, because you're ready to engage with the present moment, you're ready to engage with in the co-creative process. Then it becomes really fun. There's so much we can do. Somebody another time, a different workshop asked us, how do I deal with these boring clients that come in every week? And I just dread that meeting, and they're just saying the same old boring things every time. Look at them as your teacher. Even, or especially the most mundane, or the situations that we don't want to be, where we have the most resistance, are actually the ones that we can learn the most about ourselves. I had somebody who lived in my building, and to me, he was the devil. The devil. I had already done a lot of work on myself, but this guy had just triggered me in every possible way. I couldn't believe it. I had to set aside a block of time, an hour or two after every meeting, so that I could sit with my emotions and process all this stuff out. The devil, the devil, the devil. It took a long time, but eventually I got to the place where I realized he was my greatest teacher. Whatever it was, I don't even know what it was, but however he triggered me this is what needed to surface in me that I needed to give attention to and work through. And then the day came when I could see him, I could just love him. Like, there he is. Let me go back there first.
So when you said you're becoming sold, you're stuck in your head, the objective realities that have there, and your story is made, what are our options? What are our options?
Yes.
That's what I want to know.
Yes. Great question, because often there's this idea of, well, if we can't know, if we can't predict, if we can't plan, if we can't steer and control, what can we do? Or are we just floating aimlessly through life? I think I addressed it partially earlier in that when we do respond to what's there, there's a co-creative process that's happening, that suddenly ideas and inspirations come. We don't own ideas. They are not, artists and musicians are already, they say this beautifully, where like, oh, it just came to me. They don't know where it came from. But they are the vessel, right? We are the vessel. And when we tune ourselves a certain way, then ideas come to us. That is the freshness. It's the unknown. In Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, Deepak Chopra has a chapter dedicated to uncertainty. And he describes uncertainty. When you feel uncertain, you know you're at the cusp of source. You're at the cusp of the infinite creativity that is behind all of this. And that's not a place to fear. And even if you do initially, fear comes up, you can still move forward, even if you feel fear. You can still move forward when you're feeling your natural emotions. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant. But they'll no longer overtake you the way they used to do when you're in the big story of me. So play with life, collaborate with life, facilitate with life. Be part of the moment of unfolding is the most special place to be, the most powerful place to be, and see what comes, see what shows up. We don't have to know. We don't want to know. Then that wouldn't happen that way. Anything we think we know will block us to a certain way, to a certain point. Social anxiety is another one, where just being in a group of people already shuts you down. So there's different forms of thought identification that when it gets really extreme, depression, right? And to the point where some people want to leave their life. That's how strong identification with thought can be. I was massively depressed in my teens. There's not a picture of me between 16 and 20 where you can see me smiling. And that was, my complaints about my life, my upbringing, or my parents, and why they were this way or not that way, and not feeling like I had a home, growing up in different places. I had all kinds of reasons that today they're my strength. Now this is why I can relate, and I speak 4 languages, and I have a different backgrounds. I was never indoctrinated into one way of thinking. But I absolutely glommed onto that as something horrible and terrible. My life was ruined, and I wanted to end it. So we can come out of it. While we're in it, it's tough, but we just got to trudge forward, keep moving forward. Ultimately, the doing, the accepting. Acceptance is not giving in, it's not giving up, it's not becoming a doormat for life. Acceptance, accept so that you can take action. It's the path of least resistance. The mind thinks it's a permanent thing. But you accept because when you come out of resistance to what is, then you can actually move forward. Again, what you resist persists. If you stay in resistance to something in your life, just look at your life in all the different dimensions. What are you in resistance to? That is where you stay stuck in that way. But if you can accept that, then you can move forward. Then you invite change. Here's a little mind hack. Mr. Mind Hack just left. Think of acceptance as temporary acceptance. Just for a moment, okay, it's going to be temporary. I'm just going to accept my life, who I am, what station I am, and like my body, my bank account. I'm just going to accept it just for a moment. That's already enough to move you forward, just a little bit. To bring a little fresh, a break in this stranglehold, the stuckness. There's many different ways to stay on the side of awareness. There's a slide in this later. There were other questions I saw. Sorry, go ahead.
So I wanted to ask you, I have a teenage daughter, and between all of this of letting our intuition and what we feel best decide for us, and trying to put my daughter in a way that, there's certain norms, like you have to go to school, you have to study, you have to finish school. How can, I follow that for myself, saying that, okay, so now I will just follow my feelings and my true calling and all this, and then my daughter's true calling is that she doesn't want to go to school.
Yeah.
So what do I do then? Because she's now in a teenage phase, that she's talking like going to school today, and then she goes to school, and then she makes herself like she has a headache, and she comes back. So
yes. So really, essentially just
age that is applicable.
yeah. Great question. It's a bigger kind of topic, but I'll try to summarize it. The question was, how do you, as a parent, parlay a level of acceptance and awareness, essentially, and letting go and flowing and just acknowledging that some things are uncomfortable or not ideal in life, or how do you impart that on them? You have more control over that than you think. And this is something to ask, look within yourself. So I know a lot of parents who I've known for a long time who then decided to homeschool. It's a big decision, life-changing decision, but it's an option. So that there could be more of an imprint, a more imparting of themselves, as opposed to shuffling people off into some institution where they have a certain perspective and lens on life. Imparting on them an awareness of this is required, you may have to, this will lead to acceptance into other schools or a different system, but taking the edge off of that. That's what my parents did. They saw me super stressed one time, and they sat me down. I was really I was nervous because they never sat me down, and so this was my first sit down. I was maybe 10 or 11, And they said, you look really anxious, like what's going on? Are you worried about school? And it's like, yeah, tests are coming on, my friends are all stressed out, and there's worry in the air and so forth. And I remember just both of them, they said, don't stress. This is your measure. This is the line that you don't cross. Don't stress. And so you can still participate in these structures. They even took it a step further. They said, just get C's. So in the American grading system, A is the best, B, C is very mediocre, D is you're already in trouble territory. They said, just get C's in support of this no stress thing. And I remember thinking, well, I can do better than that. But there was no stress on me growing up. And I still finished, schools and got degrees and did things. But that's where you can lead the way. Yeah. Yes.
I want to know, how is a receiving model feel? Is that like I be present and my 5 sensations are all open up to receiving? Is this a right feeling about the receiving model?
Yes, if I understand this correctly. So we should be feeling our feelings all the time. Our body is a biochemical, there's 7 trillion cells, which by the way is crazy that they've all come together to coordinate with each other to make you. It's crazy. But so we're full of aliveness, there's full of chemical reactions, everything's happening. And when we live in our head, and we've been conditioned to live in our head, that we lose touch with all of that. And so the first thing that comes back as you move out of the reactive realm is like you just feel your own aliveness. You feel the feelings fully for the first time.
So that when I feel present, and that is the receiving model.
Yes. 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 Presence. I see so many people struggle with presence. Like, what is that? How do I do it? There's a technique they want. And it's just really very simple. It's feel your feelings fully. See what you're seeing, hear what you're hearing, and so on. This is how we're designed. This is what keeps us alert and present, is to actually, through our senses, without injecting judgment, is to see what's there. So simple. And it goes a step beyond that, actually. You can see the aliveness in anything. In anything. If you start focusing on, we walk by trees all day long. We walk by tables. We walk by in and out of structures all day long. And we just think there's a tree, there's a table, this is a building. Well, that doesn't feel very fertile and alive. It's because these are mental pictures. Tree, table, building. It's completely devoid of its true nature, its aliveness. And we've all heard of the vibrating molecules underneath. Everything is alive. But when you look at it in detail, then the aliveness starts to show itself or reveal itself. This is how you can keep a relationship fresh. Dr. Ellen Langer from Harvard's done some amazing research on this. If you want the secret to maintaining a long, healthy, fresh relationship with your partner, even after decades, make a point of noticing detail. Look at their earlobe, their eyebrow, just the nose. Just look at something in detail. And that breaks the mental snapshot, the fatigue, the staticness that the mind creates. And suddenly you see their aliveness and say, oh, they've changed. You can feel the change. You can see this in the big picture when you haven't seen a friend or relatives, nephews, whatever, in a while, a year later, and suddenly you see them again, and you can totally see the change. People change. Physically, you can see the change. Not just because they grew, but the maturity, the depth, the personality, their sense of self. This is happening all the time, not just in yearly increments, right? So you can see that aliveness day to day, moment to moment. If you tune into that, that brings out your own aliveness. You have to, you activate your own aliveness by connecting to the aliveness around you. Now you're alive, now you're present, now you're in the miracle of things, now you're curious to see what happens next. Now you show up and see what's there so that you can respond to it. It's a completely different life trajectory than constantly living from predicting and planning, from controlling, from fear. It's a serious matter, but it's not really serious because it's so simple once we come out of our own complexities. All right. I'll just go through the rest of these guys quickly. Was there another hand raise I saw? Sorry. Okay. Yeah, oh, 3 of them.
I'm just a bit confused, like, because when you said like that your growth is uncomfortable, so if your growth is uncomfortable, how can we actually use the feeling good as a measure as we should be doing something or not?
Yes. I think that was the other question there. To be aware of the discomfort, there's a beauty in that. It feels right. You're feeling it from a place of awareness. You're not identified with the discomfort. You're realizing, oh, I feel a discomfort here. Or I feel our body's full of, you probably took chakra classes or different modalities here. There's a lot of emotions are in our stomach, heartache, grief in the lungs, chest anxiety, tension, constriction in our throat, tension in our jaws, shoulders, back. Emotions and stuck feelings are everywhere. If you can stay in the awareness of those things, you're not getting pulled into the pain, the pressure, the tension, the anxiety. You're aware of it. Oh yeah, I'm carrying anxiety. I do a body scan every morning. I wake up some mornings and I feel depressed energy moving through me. I don't know where it came from. Maybe I had a bad dream. The difference is I'm not saying I'm depressed, right? Identifying with it, but rather noticing the energy from a place of awareness. Oh, there it is. There it's moving, and now it's gone. Some things are a little more persistent, and then you have to stay with them longer. But that's essentially it. And from this place of feeling discomfort, there's just, you're in the right place. You can trust any wisdom that arises from this. Maybe you see that through, you let that go, but then there's a resonance of there. Maybe this was telling you something about your lifestyle, your sleeping habits, or who you spent yesterday with, or something. There's a wisdom that reflects, because you're not in reactivity, you're in your awareness of like, what is this telling me about myself? Another one of these key power positions is to always walk through life thinking, like, what is this situation saying about me? Because we're only experiencing ourselves, always. Okay. All right. Great questions. I love this. It would be far less fun for me to just show up and talk about slides and go through my bullet points and just kind of rehearse the thing that I've done a million times before. It's the questions. They're collaborative. You're forcing me to tap into something, right? That I haven't answered that before, not that particular way and in this particular setting. And that's what makes this special. That's why I look forward to these the most. Everyone here, we're making something happen. We're co-creators in this moment. Everyone equally, yes. Mm-hmm.
And I believe that over the last couple of years, experience is, one, I can't do anything about it alone. And two, that there are things that I can learn to do on a daily basis. And doing something once a week and then just talking about it or something like that didn't work for me. But lately, basically, and I think that's like when we talk about all of this stuff, they call it a practice. And I think that that's what's made a lot of difference for me, moving from pretty much daily suicide ideation to once every 2 months. And also just kind of making sure to have a community and not trying to do this all by myself. But yeah, also there is something, this practice that I can do daily, and that's made a big difference.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That word daily is so powerful because this really is our achievements, our, all the education, all the things we create and manifest from this lack or that lack, doesn't leave that all aside. We're here to grow. We're here to heal and then be of service. Initially, we should be self-focused. Some of you might, have people, family members back home who are like, you're so selfish, what are you doing over there? Living the life, not knowing how much hard work we're doing to heal them and everyone going back. But this is primary, to heal yourself, to come out of the woundedness, out of the limiting beliefs. And then the real big piece comes into play is your energy field initially is self-absorbed, and then as you open up, now you can be of service. And you can be of service in, again, the calling, the things that you've struggled with, because that's where you're most authentic in. That's where people can trust you because you've been through it. And that is a daily dedication to oneself. There shouldn't be, I was there too, years and years, decades, investing in the external, chasing outcomes, hoping that once I achieve this or that, then I'll be happy or free or have respect or whatever it was. The external is not to be denied. Some doctrines say, the physical world is it's evil. Not at all. We are supposed to lose ourselves in it. We're supposed to seek ourselves in it. We're supposed to engage with this miracle of being in our bodies in the physical dimension. But the lesson is that permanent happiness, that permanent sense of self, cannot be found in those things. So we keep doing that until we realize, well, where else have I not looked? And then you start to turn inward. So it's a perfect design. You can have no interest in self-development, no interest in spirituality, and it's going to happen anyways. You're going to try to achieve a few things and thinking they'll make you happy, and then you realize, though, the happiness didn't last very long if you even did achieve it. And so then you maybe do that a handful of times till you go like, there must be a better way. And then you start to turn inward. So it's all very, very beautiful. What helps is, regression therapy. If you understand past lives and incarnation, if you have a sense of that, then you might not feel as much pressure to get it all done this time around. That's another topic. Yes, please.
Regarding receiving feedback, right? So, okay, controlling our own feelings and, identifying the true calling and receiving, but then you have the external effects as well, like, rather than me being reactive to the situation, other people being reactive to me, right? So when there's a feedback for work or there's other situations, how do we control that?
Yeah. So the question was, if you step back, if you stay non-reactive, how do you deal with the reactive people around you who are coming at you? They're coming for you. The wisdom that you develop from coming out of reactivity is a force. It's a force field. It's a shield, if you even want to call it that. You're having to cultivate such a container for the purity of your frequency that's going to bounce off of you, or it won't impact you as much. In the beginning, it might, and that's going to prompt you to keep cultivating that force field.
Because that's a cause of overthinking for me. If somebody said something, I might not, react, or I might not register at that moment, but then later on in the night before I go to bed, I'll keep thinking
Sure.
why I said that.
Sure, yeah. And yeah, that'll prompt you to, it's just all that means is still in progress, the cultivating of your boundaries. So then you can actually just, maybe in the meantime, until you have a true shield of your non-reactivity, of being able to stay very calm and clear in any situation, no matter if somebody's screaming at you. The obvious ones, in my experience, are actually easier to deal with. When somebody really irate is coming at you, it's easier to go like, there's something going on there, they've had a bad day, or whatever's going on, like I can kind of leave that aside. But it's when it's in these subtle ways, somebody comes to you and a little backstabbing, or it's not immediately clear what their mood is or something, or a combination of factors. So the non-reactivity will be tested. Life will test you in all these increasingly complex situations, but with different factors, different elements coming into play to really see how solid you are. And that's just normal as a result of greater awareness, is like, bring it on, life. I'm here. I'm showing up. I have no fear that I can't handle whatever is going to present itself. Going back to student mindset, instead of thinking we need to be perfectionism, accepting that we're here to learn, we're here to grow, we're here to fail, we're here to get to know ourselves better, we're here to deepen, we're here to feel our feelings fully, and there's beauty in all of that. Just to feel your own aliveness. It doesn't even matter if it's pleasant or unpleasant, because you're just bigger than just your feelings. And life is a teacher. It's the perfect mirror. You're always just experiencing yourself. Everything that happens, what is this saying about me? Yes?
When to tell the difference of when I'm trying to control versus co-create. And a very specific, though, in this moment, I'm thinking about how this is all so fascinating, and I'm remembering when I read the workshop description, things that appealed to me were like future self, exercise, and a deep meditation, and then in the overview there was something about energy clearing, and I'm like, ooh, will we get to do all of those? And I'm like, I wanted to ask about that, but then I was like, wait, am I trying to control the flow?
Yeah.
What's the difference between like, hey, I want to do that, what is that going to do, versus like, hey, is that in the flow? Would that be something others might be interested in?
Yeah. So how to tell if you're in the flow or if you're coming out of it?
Yeah.
I know people who are incredible manifestors initially. They can conjure up some image, some visualization of something that they want, and then the craziest things happen, and they meet that person or the producer or in the right setting, or somebody helps out with their flat time, just all kinds of things. And then they start controlling again, and the whole flow shuts down. And then they're like, I don't know what happened. I met this person, and now they're not calling back. It's how does it feel? You can feel when the flow shuts down, nothing happens anymore. It just stops, or it trickles. And it continues to be light and easy, and you're open to, okay, so this is okay to have expectations. It happens naturally, we're human, but like, okay, this is totally not what I expected. Well, let's see where this goes. Let's see what happens next. Let's see what happens next. Continuity, anicca, the impermanence of life, is a core tenet of Buddhism. It's to understand that everything is moving, everything is impermanent, everything is in flow. And to glom onto one moment and latch onto that and then blow it up into a big poster and say, this is it, this is a truth, or this is another thing, this is what gets us into trouble. But that's what the mind does all day long. It isolates one moment and makes it something. When real life keeps moving, keeps moving, keeps moving. So you can notice, well, this doesn't match my expectation, or this doesn't feel good, or this is bizarre, or I didn't, whatever. But just keep noticing. Notice, 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 notice. As long as you're noticing, if you just remember one takeaway word from today, the word notice, because noticing means you're on the side of your awareness. You're not identified with a thought. You're noticing your thoughts, you're noticing your feeling, you're noticing how everything's happening. And you're living life from your consciousness. And the clear indicator of when you're co-creating is when things just come to you. I said this before, we don't own our ideas. We're not the manufacturer of our ideas. We're the vessel. The inspiration comes through us in our unique way. We put our stamp on it. So we never have to be afraid that someone's going to steal your idea. They can't. Even if it's the same idea, they're going to express it differently. And our biggest problem should be, if we're really, the closer we get to flow, to objective reality, to source-led life, our biggest problem should be to manage all of that inspiration. It's like, wow, I'm being called to do this and this and this. I don't have, we have to sleep, we have to eat. There's only so much energy we have every day. But that really should be our biggest problem. Not feeling stuck and lonely and bored and stagnant and blocked. That's just a symptom of being in your head. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with any of us. It's just, what are you tuned to? What are you giving your attention to? That becomes the sum total of your frequency. The whole spectrum is available from stagnant and bored and stuck all the way up to flowing and mega creative and inspired. What are we giving our attention to? And when we have an awareness of what we're giving our attention to, then we can dial that up. The more awareness, the more we can dial it up to where we want to be. Okay, one more.
Okay. So often you have this situation with writing where you are trying to judge your writing. You're trying to decide whether this is something worthwhile to read. And so there's that inherent expectation that's kind of contained within the act of creating that work.
Yes.
And so what I'm struggling with is you get to the end of a piece of writing and you judge it. And sometimes you find it lacking, often you find it lacking, so that perfectionism kicks in. And how do you go on from that? Like, how do you not react to that and just continue to create work? Because the motivation to want to continue is kind of removed by that process of judging.
Beautiful. I say beautiful because you might be interested. I have a 5-day writing writer's retreat coming up, so you might look into that or come to see me afterwards. Everyone that joins has some variation of that issue, and every single one is a great writer, and it's just getting in our own way. So ideally, specifically to what you just depicted, is like you don't get to that judgy place in the first place. The writing prompts that we start out with at my classes are 1 or 2 or 3 words. It's not, you just need a starting point to invite that co-creative process to happen. And that co-creative process feels, we've touched on it in a variety of different ways. It feels a certain way, open and flowy, and you're almost like you can't write fast enough because it's coming. And then when you feel that shutting down, again, that's just an indicator, a symptom of like, yeah, I'm kind of getting in my head, I'm starting to judge what I'm writing, I'm starting to reread it too often, these kinds of things. But just notice when you're doing that. The noticing will prevent that from taking over. Even if you have those thoughts, oh, I don't know what this is going to turn out to be, or, I don't know what people will think of me, I'm writing personal things here, or whatever it may be, notice the thought, be aware of the thought. Then it doesn't own you. You're not giving your power to the thought. And you can keep going. You can keep writing. Before you know it, a few seconds later, that thought's gone. All you needed to do was Notice it, hold space for it, accept it essentially. Accept that it's there without reacting to it, that I shouldn't be thinking this, I don't want to be thinking this way, and then really identifying with it. What will people think of me, and I'm not worthy, whatever comes up for you. But if you can just hold space for it, it arises and passes, and before you know it, you're back in the flow, and that thought is long gone. And you just do it a few times. This isn't rocket science. You just need to feel it. This is why wisdom, 3 stages of wisdom is 1, expose yourself to information. We're all doing that by being here and listening. 2 is intellectually understanding it, getting it. Good to let yourself, sit with it and just kind of like not overthink. After this workshop is just go out there and just let it all sit. Go about your days. My best advice is to not to try and like harp on anything. But then the third part is to truly feel it, integrate it, the truth in your body. This is why, if you've ever wondered why greater consciousness hasn't taken over the planet, nothing I'm saying here hasn't been around for thousands of years already. So many different speakers on this subject, so many spiritual books aisle. You go to Barnes & Noble and it's just chock full. So it's not like the information isn't out there, but have you felt it? Have you felt it for yourself, within you, the truth of co-creation coming in, ideas that are not yours, you're a vessel, you're giving shape to it, that it feels a certain way. And then when that leaves you, it feels a certain way. And instead, you're now starting to feel troubled or second-guessing or judgy, feels differently. So now you can actually align with, okay, I need to get back to that place. Again, no one's a problem. We're not a problem that needs to be fixed. All we have to do is recognize the symptom, notice it, and then make change. Instead of the big reaction, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, it's never going to turn into anything, my life is ruined, it's a waste. Those are heavy, big, heavy thoughts. Instead of that, you can recognize the thought. Oh, that's not a beneficial thought. And then turn your attention back to where you want it to be. And so that's living from awareness. Whew, yes.
So in the work description, you mentioned that you will share special strategies to overcome all of this.
Yes, we're trying to get to them.
Run the to-do list, not to try to overthink it because we have all the time.
Yes. It's okay to have a to-do list, by the way. This is not about changing anything you're doing, it's how you're doing it. So,
Can you repeat the question, please? So basically, we want to move forward to the solutions, how to overcome it.
how to actually overcome it.
And the to-do list, I'm here for that.
Yes. Okay. To-do list, again, it's important to have one. It's okay to have one, but do it one item at a time.
You mentioned that you have a special methodology in how to
Yes,
do it.
yes,
Brilliant.
yes. We're also getting to that. I think we addressed pretty much everything here. Underlying all of it is social conditioning. Again, none of this is meant to place blame on yourself or feel like something wrong with you or that you're at fault. It's just about recognizing you are who you are, given your environment and your background and your what's gone into you, and now what do you do with that? That's all that is. These are all pretty quick. We've talked about them. Analysis paralysis, choice overload. Again, shows you how quickly our mind gets overloaded when we task it with choosing what's right for us. It just doesn't know how to do that. So noticing, I'm suffering from choice overload. My mind is in paralysis. You're not a problem. It's simply an indicator that you're too much in your head. The second guessing, the uninspired, the limiting beliefs, the fatigue, anxiety, feeling lost and disconnected, and chasing your happiness. Again, there's nothing wrong with you. That's the most important thing. Because most of our thoughts, our inner critic is probably our worst enemy, are about, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm a problem that needs to be fixed. With awareness, you just notice those thoughts and then you let them go. All right. Okay, here we go. We've talked about mindfulness pretty much all day. Meditation, breathwork, journaling, something that will change your journaling practice is make it not about the connection between your head and the words, but between the words and your feelings. It will change your journaling experience exponentially, make it way more powerful. So now you're writing and you're in direct contact with how your writing makes you feel. And when you feel triggered, when you feel activated, maybe even too much, you stop writing, close your eyes, just notice the sensation, observe it, and let it dissipate, let it fade again. And then you can continue writing. And you can clear out and cleanse your entire system. Again, thoughts are so vindictive when they just stay in our heads. They torment us when we're just kind of like thinking in our heads and thinking these things are true. As soon as you write something out, you already, half of it falls by the wayside. It's like, this is an old version of me, or this isn't even true. Because writing it out forces you to apply scrutiny and boundaries to these vague thought forms. Also sharing with a friend or trusted partner, the more active listener they can be, meaning not judging you for it. We're going to practice that in just a moment. The more you can feel heard and seen and actually let go of what needs to be let go of. Challenging negative beliefs. I have an extra slide for you with some questions around that. Again, it's very easy to poke some holes into these beliefs, no matter how strong they feel, like you've been looping around something. But with a few simple tools, you can a prompt, you can poke a hole and it just like bursts like a bubble, and you're like, wow, this is what I've been stressing about, and now it's gone. The third one is most obvious. Everything comes back to quality sleep, nutrition, exercise. We know all this. It's not rocket science, but if you don't sleep well, it's an interesting connection. When you don't sleep well, your awareness suffers. I haven't fully understood how that works, where the resources for awareness come from, so that when your constitution isn't optimal, that your consciousness actually suffers. You're not able to be as present. You can feel that your nerves are a little more frayed, a little more reactive. And then time management, obviously, productive rest we talked about. And then, to the question back there, cultivating supportive environments. So the people we surround ourselves with. If your friends are going to activity A, you're more likely to join them. And if your friends are going to go to activity B, you're likely to join them. So what does your circle of friends do? Where do you hang out? Where do you spend your time? That's going to be, even if you have no meditation practice or mindfulness interests, surrounding yourself with the right people is going to have the biggest impact. All right, so we're going to do the first exercise, active listening. Pick a partner right next to you. We'll start here, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then we'll go to these 2. Yes, you 2. Then 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And Chinta, can you come over here? We have one person here. And then 2, 2, 2, 2, and then 2, you 2, and you 2. Perfect. One person is going to be, is this 2-minute exercise. One person is going to be the speaker, and the other one is the listener. The speaker is going to pick something a topic that you're not familiar with, okay? You just ask the other person, do you know anything about such and such? Just find something that the other person does not know anything about. And then you're just going to talk about it for 2 minutes. That's it. Now the listener, do your absolute best, the highest quality of attention. There's no responding. It's just give them your attention, eye contact. Try not to filter anything they're saying through your own mind. Do you believe this or not? You just be there for them, hold space, and that's it. 2 minutes. All right. All right. Okay. We can come back to our seats. So you might have noticed, you will have noticed, how easy it is to listen with an open mind when you know nothing about it. And how hard it is to listen with an open mind when you do have opinions or prior knowledge of something. Anyone experience that? Yes? Okay. And that's okay if you're just kind of like shooting the shit and talking with friends and all that. But if this is your consistent behavior going through life, is everything that you know, you're basically now in resistance, you're comparing, you're shutting down any newness, and you feel defensive and you're starting to judge whatever you're hearing and seeing. This is how, one of the primary sources of how we get pulled into our head, is our knowledge, our emphasis on knowing. But this is something you can practice. Just find a partner or pair up with somebody else, just like we did here, and practice listening with an open mind. Notice, as when it's a common subject, how your mind starts to judge. Notice how it starts to like, is this right or wrong, or true or false? How dare they think that? You know, whatever the chatter is, just notice the chatter. If you can notice the chatter, it'll keep you out of the chatter. And even if you just come out of this chatter 5%, 10%, it adds years to your life. I think I did the math once. 10% less reactivity based on 2/3 a day adds 7 or 8 years to your life of time actually spent living, of being here, of engaging, communicating, experiencing, getting to know yourself better, giving back, being a co-creator of life. So it's a huge impact, this mind-driven. I think intellectually all understand, yeah, we got to come out of our mind, but it's in us thick. As soon as you think you know something, it's part of your control grid. It's part of your truth structure. Just practicing being aware of that will bring you out of it. All right. Thought awareness meditation. I'll lead us through about an 8 or 10 minute meditation. And again, the important piece here is to notice when your mind has drifted. It's not if your mind drifts, it's when it drifts, because it will drift for everyone. Guaranteed. And it's a microcosm. This is the most powerful meditation. When you notice that your mind has drifted, that is the moment of either reacting to it. How come my mind has drifted? Why can't it stay still? What kind of mind is this? Or do you accept? My mind has drifted. The reality is not the way I want it to be. And I accept that. And I'm going to bring it back to where I do want it to be, which is we'll be focusing on our breath. And this is a microcosm of what happens hundreds of times every day, all day long. You see a situation that's not the way you want it, you have a choice. Do you have a strong enough awareness muscle that we cultivate to say, okay, it's not how I want it. I'm noticing the reality is different than how I want it to be. But you stay clear-headed, out of reactivity, you're in acceptance, and then you take action. Acceptance leads to action. Not being passive. It's action. Acceptance leads to action. And this, we practice here in a microcosm, and when you do this enough, you'll notice in everyday situations you're going to react less and less and less. You're just like, okay, the continuity, the impermanence of life's nature has start to sink into your being, into your body, and you see situations and like, okay, this is the way it is now. But if you don't isolate that moment and say, this is it, it'll never be as dramatic. It'll just be, okay, this is how it is now. See how it evolves from here, what comes next. So I'll lead this meditation. We're going to find a comfortable position. Sitting up straight, spine straight, bones stacked. And with your eyes and mouth closed, focus all your attention on the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. There's a sensitive area below the nostrils and above the upper lip. Just look for the touch of your breath. If you have trouble locating your breath, you can breathe slightly harder once or twice. And once you feel the touch of your breath, return to natural breath, normal breath. Let the detail of your breath pull you in closer into the present moment. If your breath is shallow, let it be shallow. If your breath is deep, let it be deep. If it's more in the left nostril, let it be the left nostril. If it's more in the right nostril, let it be the right nostril. Or if it's in both nostrils, let it be both. Notice the temperature of the incoming breath. Notice the temperature of the outgoing breath. And notice if there's a difference. Notice the pace of the incoming breath. Notice the pace of the outgoing breath. And notice if there's a difference. Notice the length of the incoming breath. Notice the length of the outgoing breath. And notice if there's a difference. Notice the pause at the end of your inhale. Notice the pause at the end of your exhale. And notice if there's a difference. And whenever you find that your mind has wandered, simply notice it. And without frustration, without dismay, but with full acceptance, bring your attention back to the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. Natural breath. Normal breath. Observe your breath as it is, without wanting it to be different. And whenever you feel ready, you can gently bring your attention back to this room. Blink open your eyes. Notice your environment. Notice yourself in your environment. Notice your peace, your presence, and your stillness. Stillness is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of consciousness. All right, so taking the flow we've cultivated, our presence, our connectedness to our bodies, stillness of mind. We'll spend the next 10 minutes. It's a longer exercise you can take home, but we'll start here. And really feel into your day from the moment you wake up. How do you want to be feeling? What do you want to give your attention to? Construct your ideal day from a feeling perspective. Pay special attention to details. Presence is in the details. Your senses. 2 more minutes. One minute. All right, so this is something you can use as a template and keep refining it day by day. You start to implement some things and really feel it. You have to do to see if it really resonates. You need a starting point, but then start doing and let that guide you. And keep refining it because we keep changing. You are the master of your life, your happiness. We know ourselves best. No one else knows us. Your parents don't know you. So, no better person than yourself to create that perfect, beautiful, abundant life. No one will do it for us. You can take a picture of this if you want. So I can also share it via WhatsApp. All right. Okay. The 3, what I call power positions that will keep you out of your mind. If you can maintain these 3 simple statements, what does the situation say about me? This is coming out of your victimhood. Life is not happening to us. It's not out to get you. You're not a problem. Be a student. Life is a teacher. It's your perfect one-to-one mirror. What does the situation say about me? Next, is this true? Just question the question. Question your thoughts. In order to ask that question, is this true? You have to be on the side of awareness. That will keep you out of overthinking. It will keep you out of your mind. Most importantly, it will it will surface any blind patterns. Right? It will pull them up. And then let's see what happens next. If you can go into every situation with that attitude, with these 3 attitudes, and break the illusion of permanence. All right, it is the way it is. I may like it, I may not like it, but let's see what happens next. These are it's a 3-pronged spear to counter the the mind chatter, the reactivity. So simple too. You can think of them as mantras. That's essentially what mantras do as well. All right. We're at time, but for those, can everyone stay? Yes? Anyone needs to leave, you can go, but definitely encourage you to stay for this. We'll do an energy clearing. Think of a situation that triggers you. You can just think of it or write it down, just for a minute, until you feel something active in your body. Triggers are sensations. They point to somewhere inside of you. We've talked about stomach, chest, heart, throat, shoulders, back. It could be anywhere. So just identify. Think of something that triggers you and identify where it shows up. No, right now. Feel it in your body. Yeah. Often we already are fully aware of it. I've been carrying this weight or this tension or anxiety, blockages. Okay. All right. Do you have something to focus on in your body? Something active? Yes? Good. Yes? How about you? Have you found some? Chest? Yeah? Chest? Okay. How about you? Upper chest? Good. Good, good. Everyone have an area to focus on? Yes? Does anyone have shoulders? Pick the shoulder that's more intense. So if anyone's feeling it in the shoulders, just pick one, or neck, even jaw sometimes. All right? Okay, good. So you can put down your pen and paper. Finding a comfortable position, closing your eyes. I'm going to walk you through a series of questions. You can answer them silently to yourself. There's never a need to force or rush. Always be gentle, always be kind, always staying comfortable. If you're ever uncomfortable, most people are not, but if you are, you can always back off and go back to your last comfortable spot. And let my voice take you deeper and deeper, relaxed. Focusing all your attention on the area you've identified. Answer the following questions. Is this a broad simmering sensation or more of a concentrated pinpoint one? Is this area fluffy, like a cloud, or more dense, like a rock? Is this area three-dimensional? Can you look around the sides, above and below, front and back? Or is it more flat? Just answer silently to yourself. Does this area have a shape? Perhaps it's oval or round or angular. Just notice, just observe. Going deeper and deeper, relaxed. Now pick a starting point and draw an outline around the shape. If the boundaries are blurry, just do your best. If they're distinct, just follow the outline from one point all the way around, back to where you started from. Just notice, just observe. Now see if you can get closer to this area, the shape. Will it let you come close or does it push back? Just find a comfortable distance. A little tension is okay. Maybe you can get all the way to the surface. Maybe you have to keep your distance. Whatever it is, just observe. Just notice and examine. Now scan the entire surface from all sides, above and below, front and back. Just keeping a comfortable distance. Just observing. Just noticing. Notice any changes in shape or size or density. Now see if you can zoom in to the surface and see, does it have a texture? Perhaps it's bubbly or craters or edges or spikes. Or maybe it's flat and glassy or metallic. Just observe. Just examine. Scan across the entire surface, noticing the texture from all sides, above and below, front and back. And as you scan the surface, notice if there's a color that comes to you. Perhaps it's dark or gray. Perhaps it's red. Another color altogether. And scan the entire surface. Is the color consistent or irregular? Perhaps there's different shades or gradients. Or maybe there's no color at all. Just notice. Just observe. Going deeper and deeper. Relax. Now see if you can touch the surface. Can you tap it? Will it let you, or does it push back? Always being gentle. Always being kind. Just touch and tap. Touch and tap. Across the entire surface. From all sides, above and below, front and back. Noticing any changes in shape or size or color or density or texture. Just observe. Just examine. Now see if you can poke the surface, if you can penetrate it. How does it respond? Does it stay indented? Or does it spring back? Always staying comfortable. No need to force. Just poke and prod. Poke and prod. Poke and prod across the entire surface, noticing any changes in shape or size or color or texture. Now see if you can penetrate the shape, penetrate the surface, and go inside. Will it let you? Or does it push back? If it pushes back, that's all right. If you can go inside, you can do that now. And just see what you see there from inside. Perhaps there are walls or structures, or the pink from your insides. Just observe. Just notice. And looking around, you can ask this energy, what is its purpose? Perhaps to protect you, or shield you, or hide something from you. Just ask and let the answer come to you. And now ask this energy if it would like to leave you, or if it wants to stay. That's all right too. Just ask. Let the answer come to you. And if it wants to leave, what is its preferred way? Maybe it wants to dissolve, or melt, or leave you through an opening. Just ask. Let the answer come to you. If you and the energy are ready, it's time to initiate the clearing. Whatever its preferred method, perhaps dissolving or melting, or leaving you through an opening you can create. Accompany this energy out of you into the ether. As you release the energy, you can thank it. It's been part of you, perhaps for a long time. But it's no longer needed. It's time to go. At this point, you can also transmute this energy into something else. Perhaps self-love, or butterflies, or a healing balm. Make sure to release it all so no residue remains. All of it must go. Gradually bringing your attention back to the area where the energy used to be. What do you see there now? Perhaps openness or spaciousness. Perhaps a light. Perhaps pink from the insides. And into this space, you can now invite anything you want, anything you need, you feel you're missing, perhaps the energy of abundance or forgiveness, of more healing, of more self-compassion. Whatever it may be, you can invite it now. See this energy filling you completely. Expanding from that area all the way to the rest of your body, to the top of your head. And all the way down to the tips of your toes. Washing away any darkness, any stuckness, any limiting beliefs. See this energy oozing out of your pores into your energy field, into your aura. This is your natural state. To be loved, to be accepted, to be complete. Lock in this feeling, this state. You can call it in any time, should it ever leave you. And returning your attention to your body, to your inner wisdom. If there are any questions you have, or any messages you want to receive, you can ask them now. Let your inner wisdom surface all that you're meant to hear. And noting your wisdom, any messages. You can bring your attention back to the wholeness of your body. Total stillness. And whenever you're ready, you can come back to the present moment. Back to the room that you're in. Bringing back some gentle movement, wiggling your toes, your hands. And gently blinking open your eyes. Noticing the fidelity of your senses. Noticing your aliveness. Everything is just energy. We are energy. Feelings are energy. Any blockages that we carry, just energy. And it all can be released through our non-resistance, through our neutral, unbiased attention. Thank you.